we prepared for a moment of sanctuary, of sacredness? If not, let's take a breath. Find our way there, into that space of moving from the activity, the words, and the thoughts of outside to the activity, words, and thoughts inside. We move with gentle, purposeful intent into that space inside of us where the divine connects with the human. Where does God meet our humanity inside of us? Maybe it's your heart. Maybe it's your gut. Maybe it's your backbone or your mind. Wherever it is, find that space right now and just kind of go there with a little bit more attention than you normally might. And find the God there. That divine that animates and moves us, that is always within, as well as everywhere at once. That personal, beautiful, guiding Godness within us, there every moment. We reach into that now. We send it love first, and then we know that when we do that, that love multiplies and spills out all over the place. And we just let it fill us with love. Just take a moment to send yourself love, appreciation, peace, acceptance, and then again, love. And then we feel within that love and feeling it filling our bodies, and we find where our strength lives. Where do you feel that when we think of strength? Where does that reside inside? We use that divine love within to feed that strength now. We know we have the strength we need to move through anything that we fear, anything that we try to avoid, anything that we would rather not be happening. We know and claim that it's happening within God, and we bring our strength to it. We have more than enough strength to bring to it. In the midst of this meditation, we take another breath, deep and conscious, and we release it fully and on purpose. And we remember that that is the very breath of God itself. We are breathing the breath of God. We are a part of the body of God. We are living, moving, and having our being inside of God. Not a personage, the allness of everything that exists. We're in it. It gives us strength. It gives us love because it is strength and it is love. God is the everything. From the personal that we lean on, maybe as Father, to the infinite that we move into as in divine order. God's in it all. God is it all. So we take just a moment and allow that love and that strength to penetrate and permeate every cell of our body. And then knowing that we are strong and loved beyond measure, we share it. Just feel it pouring out of you to around you, to the people in front of you, behind you, beside you. Just pouring out of your heart, out of your soul, out of your spirit into this space around us, multiplying, moving forward from an unending supply, filling this room, then moving out through the walls and into the space around us. Love and strength, light, acceptance, peace, outward and outward and outward until it moves around this entire planet, enveloping everything in love and strength and peace. Moving out into the universe as far as we can conceive. And we just allow it to keep doing that, and we feel ourselves bathed in it for just a moment in the sacred silence as we allow it to move and expand and grow. And then with another breath, we just let it land. Wherever it's reached, just let it saturate that and let it be there. And remember that it begins within, and feel it inside every cell. With gratitude, with joy, in receiving and in giving, we say, thank you, God. Thank you, God. And so it is. Amen. What happens here every Sunday just kind of amazes me. It really does. You know, we co-create this experience. What comes out of my mouth happens because of what happens before the service, happens because of the energy that is moving in here and what we need, because I go home and go, did I really say that? Sometimes I have to listen to it. Like last Sunday, you know, I tell on myself to different degrees, and last Sunday I told on myself way too much. Now y'all know that I have this little roll of fat right here and I don't like it. And I went home and I thought, wow, I said way too much. And I listened to it. Maybe not. I do know that especially after Sundays when I say stuff and I think, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just said that. That's usually the Sunday where the most people come up to me afterward and say, thank you so much for saying that. So it's a fascinating dance that I think any person who stands up on a platform with the task of inspiring and empowering, there really is that space of where am I in this and how do I get out of my own way to share something that empowers others, you know? And I hope to do that every week. And so tomorrow is President's Day. Used to be Washington's birthday. So I thought it would be great to give Washington some love. You know, George Washington, our first president, he's an amazing man. And I don't know if you remember more than people said he wore wooden teeth. I hope that you remember so much more about him, but I wanted to share some facts, and I was afraid I was going to forget some, so I'm going to go on to the paper for just a few moments. So this was Washington's birthday since 1800. Washington passed in 1799, and they wanted to honor him. So right the next year, there was a Washington's birthday. It was February 22nd, which is his birthday, for the longest time. And then in 1971, I got to get this right, the Uniform Monday Holiday Act happened because they said, you know, it's really inconvenient when a holiday falls on a Wednesday. And so they shifted and said, we need more 3-day weekends. And they decided that it would become the Monday that it is, and then decided to embrace all presidents within it. So I want to give George Washington a little more love this President's Day because he certainly deserves it. So he, of course, was our first president. He didn't go to college. He was a self-educated farmer. He didn't finish any length of school. He self-educated. He learned so much and became such a pillar of strength and integrity that he automatically ended up in leadership roles again and again and again because people saw him not just in strength, but in virtue and in integrity and in authenticity, and they wanted to hear what he had to share. He's the only president that didn't live in the White House, because it didn't exist when he was president. They were building it. And so he was the only one that didn't get to live in the White House. He didn't wear a wig, which was very fashionable in those days. He powdered his blonde hair so that he had the white-colored hair that everyone expected. He was a dog lover. He had over 30 hounds at one time with names such as Drunkard and Sweet Lips. I'm not going to ask any further about how those names came about. And people wanted him, no, I'm not going to go to that one yet. He was the only president unanimously elected. Wow, right? He was unanimously elected not once, but twice. They actually wanted him to become king. They told him, just keep going. Please, just keep going. They loved his leadership. And he was self-restrained and self-regulated enough to lead with this level of integrity that has rarely been seen, that he said, no, that's not what we are. We're not a monarchy. We are a republic. And I want to strengthen that republic and allow other voices to be heard. So I'm stepping down. He's self-limited. There wasn't any of that when he came there. That's a pretty powerful statement right there. Because sometimes being the strongest person in the room looks like stepping back and letting someone else lead. That's something we don't always embrace about strength. It's not about pushing through or talking louder or making your voice be above or beyond anyone else's. It's about standing strong and knowing that the way forward is important enough that sometimes someone else has directions that we don't. He had problems with the Articles of Confederation. He saw that they were not a fantastic document, and so they had in 1787 the Constitutional Convention, and he went there to become a part of it, and they unanimously elected him leader of it and president of that convention, and he said very little. He allowed the people who understood the crafting of laws and on the large scale of what this was going to be, he said very little. He allowed the formation to happen with and around him, and then he got to be the first person to sign the Constitution when it was drafted because he was the president of it. He absolutely loved ice cream. so much so that in the day that he had his ice cream love, he actually had a specialized freezing container created in his home so that he could have and keep ice cream. He was an agricultural innovator. He was gifted a mule from Spain during his presidency, and he ended up becoming an incredibly successful breeder of mules. And he kind of, wasn't single-handedly, but creating the American mule, and in breeding and creating the health of and promoting the American mule. He's one of the forerunners in that. He did not, as I said in the beginning, have wooden teeth, which a lot of people, I've heard that since I was little. He did not have wooden teeth, but he had some weird teeth. He had teeth made out of actual human teeth, sometimes. He had teeth made out of gold. Who knew? George Washington created the grill, right? And he had some made out of ivory. He had all sorts of different kinds of dentures and wore different kinds of dentures. I don't know how he decided which day was which, but sometimes George Washington was the very first guy with a grill. So that was cool. And he was the only slave-owning president who freed his slaves. He and his wife both freed their slaves. Now, this statement bothers me to even say about how ingrained slavery was, but they had some slaves in the Washington household that had been the slaves of Martha's mother and father, and they weren't allowed to free them. So they lived till the ends of their lives with them, not having to be known as slaves, but they weren't allowed to free them. Crazy, right? We have some stuff in our history that is really messed up. And it's when we refuse to see that or acknowledge that or understand that we know what we know when we know it, and then when we know better, we do better. If we don't allow ourselves and others to see the we didn't do so great, we have the danger of stepping back into not doing so great. So it's important that we teach our history accurately and fully. It's important that we embrace what we ourselves have come through so that we can be better and know more and do better as we move forward. That is part of strength. That's part of strength, is acknowledging where we've fallen down and where we've messed up. What was it, Thomas Edison, that said something about he didn't invent the light bulb, he just found out and how many ever thousand of ways it didn't work, and then one way it worked? Let's acknowledge where we've come from and where we've fallen down, because that is how we powerfully build forward. So, and again, it was his willingness to surrender power that may be his most important legacy, and one that I think it's important for us to hear today. Because there are a lot of people in our world today that kind of act like toddlers. They got the toy and they're not giving it up. And it is in our power to realize that our power increases internally when we lean on God and when we lean on the best possible for everyone. Our power increases. It doesn't decrease. So in December 23rd of 1783, he walked into the Maryland State House in Annapolis, and he was a renowned soldier. He was a real good, excellent soldier. He had horses shot out from under him while he was on them and kept going. He had shots fired through his clothes and kept going and kept leading. He was a renowned soldier. And he walked into the Maryland State House in Annapolis and surrendered his military commission to Congress because he wanted to affirm the principle of civilian control of the military. He didn't want to be seen as needing to control the military, and so he released his power. He released his power when it was time to let someone else have a voice in leading the country. King George III heard that he did this, And he said, boy, if he did this, he would be the greatest man in the world, because he understood what it would be to release that kind of power. He could have been king. He chose instead to lead with integrity and allow others to lead with integrity as well. So this month we're talking about the power of strength. We're going through Linda Martella Whitsitt's book, Divine Audacity. Now, on our class on Tuesday or our group on Tuesday, we're not talking about strength in there, but we're talking about strength in here, because February is the strength of power for February. So we are moving in through there. So, and of course my thing fell out. There we go. So when we're talking about power and strength in here in Linda Martella Whitsitt's book, she says it's the power of stability, courage, and tenacity. Strength is not about being the strongest person in the room. It's not about looking the most buff or showing how much strength we have by showing others how much they don't. Sometimes strength looks different than we think it might look. Sometimes strength, Steve, I hope you know that nobody else stole your stuff but me. Sometimes strength looks like using tools designed to help us that we don't want to use. And I'm not pointing at you, I'm celebrating you.
But it's the truth.
I won't say out loud, yes, I'm going to say it out loud. I've noticed that Steve has this great cane now, and I know that he's using it at the request of his daughter, and I know that it helps with stability, and I know that it is probably something that Steve really doesn't feel like carrying along with him. I know, I've watched people through my time in leadership in Unities fight using a walker, fight using hearing aids, fight using canes, fight asking for help, fight accepting help. It doesn't mean you're stronger, that you can have a much better fall because you weren't supported. It doesn't make you stronger to sit in the hospital after that broken hip that didn't have to be broken if you just used the walker. Right? I've got news for you. It doesn't make you look older to use the tools that help you stay younger. Okay? Please, please hear that. I don't want to come to your hospital room and sit with you. I want to support you and go hear music with you and go dance and sing and have fun with you. We all do. I mean, we will sit in the hospital room with you. And as Steve likes to say all the time, it's all choices, right? Sometimes strength looks like walking with a cane when you don't want to walk with a cane. Sometimes strength looks like getting down on your knees and saying, God, I can't do this anymore, and I need help. Strength doesn't always look like the man with the biggest muscles and the loudest mouth in the room. Please allow yourself to know the divine strength within you that may look completely different. It may look like you going to someone and saying, I am powerless against alcohol and I need help to become sober. Sometimes strength looks like saying, I don't know how to do a budget and finances, but you who do, could you just help me sort this out, please? Because within us, God lives. We're standing and living and breathing and moving and ideating and falling in love and crying and losing jobs and gaining houses and taking on whole new life paths inside of God. We're in it. You can't be separated from it. But doggone if we don't fight our awareness of that. Doggone if we don't stand, we think, strong in our independence. We stand stronger in our dependence. We always stand stronger in our independence. You know, there's a great little boy that we all tell a story about again and again and again and again. Sorry, Josh, if I'm making you... There's a boy that's become famous through time. His name was David. And there was an army that everyone was afraid of. Oh my goodness gracious, I shouldn't have done that. There we go, okay. There was an army that included an amazingly huge soldier named Goliath. I want to share with you his description. His height was 6 cubits and a span. He had a helmet of bronze on his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail. The weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of bronze. He had greaves of bronze on his legs and a javelin of bronze slung between his shoulders. The shaft of his spear was like a weaver's beam. That's new to me, sorry about that. And his spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron, and his shield bearer went before him. That's 1 Samuel. Clearly, Goliath was immense and mighty. And this boy, David, he was too small to fight with the soldiers, and so he would bring water and run errands and run around and do things for all of the soldiers, but he wasn't considered big enough, strong enough, or old enough to fight. And he was watching as he's bringing water to all these very brave, armed, shielded soldiers who nobody would stand up and volunteer to fight Goliath. So he went to the king. And he said, I'll do it. Now that's, they say all the time, sometimes bravery and idiocy stand on a razor's edge, right? So everybody there was probably going, he's either really smart or, And he went to the king and he said, I'll do it. I will do it. And the king, wanting to make an example of his bravery, but I'm sure probably thinking, okay, guys, somebody else step up so this doesn't have to happen, because this guy's just going to stomp on him, And he gives David his armor and puts his armor on this little boy, and it's so heavy that David can't even move. He can't move in this armor, and he's like, and this sword, he can't draw this sword. Sword's about as big as he is. And so he's like, you know what, forget it, I can't, this is hampering me. See, sometimes the swords and the shields that we carry are actually what is weighing us down and keeping us from moving forward in strength. Sometimes those things that we think we need to hold around us and keep our bravery behind are simply standing in the way of expressing our strength. So David threw off the sword and the shield and the armor, and he said, there's got to be a better way to do this. And he just went and got his sling and his stones, because he understood a sling and a stone. He didn't understand a giant sword and a suit of armor. Think about this in our days. What is it that helps you move into your strength? What is it? It may be something that feels like a sword and a shield, or it may be a vulnerability of getting up on stage and saying, I have this roll of fat right here, I can't stand it. Strength looks different on everybody. It's that varied. And so David said, I've got my sling and my stones, and Goliath kind of laughed at him. Who do you think you are? Look at all those soldiers that won't even face me. Don't you realize how frightening I should be? Right? This is kind of the way it can be today, of the things that might be happening that we feel that we are powerless against stopping. There is nothing in this world ever changed that didn't begin changing with one voice. And then that one voice gives someone else the strength to use their voice. And then all of those voices come together, and the voices get louder until it is a tide that cannot be ignored, and then change happens. So David went out there and fought Goliath and knocked the man out with a stone. Defeated Goliath with a stone. There is something to be said for that strength. And like I said, it's a razor's edge. When we have so much confidence that we are strong enough to do whatever it is that we are to do, that is ours to do, that sometimes we can do some crazy things. Yesterday, I went out on an airboat that I actually drove the van that the trailer was hooked to, that the airboat went in the water from. I've never done this before in my life. I was really scared, but I drove the trailer and the van around out of the launching of the airboat and put it in the driveway and drove this. It's a Mercedes Sprinter giant van. So come on, give me some credit here. It wasn't just a small, no. That, by the way, I had to sit on the edge of the seat because my legs wouldn't reach the pedals. And I drove it around and went for an airboat ride, and it was wonderful, and it was terrifying. And there's all of these things that we do in a day that can become habit, and there are things that we can do in a day that push us out of our comfort zone and allow us to grow into spaces we didn't think we could grow. Sometimes because someone else sees the strength in you and gives you a job or a task or asks you to do something because they figure, well, of course you've got this. You're strong enough. You're knowledgeable enough. Sometimes we borrow others' belief in our own strength to strengthen us, right? So this divine power of strength within each one of us, you've got David in here. You are David at times. When that thing happens, when your life falls out from under you, and when you're getting ready to take a move to somewhere that you've never been and you don't know what it's going to bring, to say, I got this. I am strong because God is within me. There's a lot of things that can happen in life that we say it's divine order, damn it. And allow those things to move us to places we never thought we'd be able to go. Because your biggest life is right on the other side of your biggest fear. And you, my friends, are stronger than any fear that could ever face you. Fear, face everything, and rise. And so be it. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. Please visit www.unityofsebring.org for more information, to submit a prayer request, or to donate to our ministry. We hope to see you again very soon.